Hello. You like to dream, at least once dreamed, and imagine you were born more than 40,000 years ago. What would you dream of? Imagine you are 40,000 years ago on the street -30. The wool of a mammoth is worn on you in 3 layers, and to the nearest Apiateroshka, about 40,000 years ahead on the time scale. What does a person do in such a situation? Right? Dreams. Because dreams are the only thing that is not taxed even in the Ice Age. Today we will examine in detail what our distant ancestors really dreamed about while the ice cracked around, wolves the size of a refrigerator howled, and mammoths slowly walked past like live trucks. Spoiler, their dreams were much closer to ours than you think. Unless instead of, "I want an iPhone," they wanted, "I want this stone to finally start cutting meat and not just scratching it." Get comfortable, wrap yourself in something warm. The irony of the moment will be appropriate, and go on a trip to 40,000 years ago. Dream 1. To be warm. Let's start with the most obvious. If an ancient person were asked, "What do you lack for complete happiness?" 9 out of 10 would answer, "Warm." The 10th would simply knock his teeth in agreement, because I somehow do not want to speak in the cold -40. My lips stick together. The Ice Age is not an easy cool in which it is pleasant to throw on a sweater and drink cocoa. This is a harsh reality where the temperature could drop to showstopper values, and the summer lasted about the same as the advertisement before the video on YouTube. That is, very short and always out of time. Ancient people dreamed of warmth literally with their whole body. They dreamed of it when they made fire by friction of sticks against each other. And believe me, it was not romance by the fire, but a natural struggle for life, where a miss meant a night without heating. Imagine a modern person who sat down his phone at 1% and there is no charging. That's the same despair, only instead of a discharged phone, a discharged fire, and instead of watching stories, the risk of freezing to death. Scientists studying the life of the Paleolithic people find plenty of evidence of how important fire was in their lives. The fires found during excavations are not just ashes, they are real temples of warmth, around which the whole life of the community was built. A cave without fire is like a modern apartment without heating and with broken windows. You can live, but you do not want to. And here is an interesting point. People did not just dream of warming up now. They dreamed of heat as a permanent, stable state. Apparently the idea of, but it would always be warm and it would not be necessary to carry firewood all the time haunted humanity long before the advent of central heating. We can say that the first person in history who thought, "I wish this fire did not go out," already dreamed of an analog of a gas column. Just no documentation and no gas bill. Some researchers believe that it was the dream of constant warmth that became one of the driving forces of migration. People went south not because they were bored in one place, but because it was banally warmer there. That is the first ever dream of moving to the sea where the sun was born, not among 21st century pensioners saving money for an apartment in Sochi, but among Stone Age hunters trying not to freeze banally at Dream 2, to have food in your hands. The second most important dream, and there are no surprises, is food. And not abstract food, but food without having to run after it in the snow for miles at the risk of being eaten by something larger than yourself. Imagine a typical working day of an Ice Age hunter. You wake up from the cold. Once, you realize that there is nothing to eat. 2, you take a spear and go looking for a mammoth, a reindeer, or at least a decent-sized hare. 3, and here the most interesting thing begins. Hunting a mammoth is not a trip to the supermarket. where the meat neatly lies on the shelf in a vacuum package. This is a multi-hour and sometimes multi-day operation, requiring the coordinated work of a whole group of people, great luck, and the ability not to be trampled in the process. Is it any wonder that people dreamed of a simpler way to get food? Judging by archaeological finds, it was this dream, multiplied by ingenuity, that led to the invention of traps, snares, and a little later to the domestication of animals. That is, in fact, the whole history of agriculture and livestock grew out of one simple thought of a hunter freezing in ambush. I wish this carcass would come to me, not me to it. By the way, fun fact, some finds indicate that ancient people specially arranged traps, dug holes, put barriers to direct the herd of animals in the right direction. This is actually the first marketing in history. We do not chase the client, we create a sales funnel at the end of which is dinner. If the Paleolithic man had an MBA diploma, he would proudly write in his resume, developed and implemented a system for attracting a cattle. More precisely, large mammoth traffic. And of course, the dream of a stable diet was inextricably linked with the dream of stocks. Frozen meat hidden under the ice is, in fact, the first ever refrigerator. Natural free without having to pay for electricity, but with one significant drawback. The neighboring wolf was also perfectly able to find his way to this refrigerator, and showdowns for the content sometimes ended not in favor of the person. 3. To be safe. Now let's talk about the third whale of ancient man's dreams. Security. And here it is worth understanding one important thing. In the Ice Age, man was far from at the top of the food chain. We used to consider ourselves kings of nature, but 40,000 years ago, the situation was much less unambiguous. Cave lions, cave bears, packs of wolves, saber-toothed cats. This was not a scenery for the film, but a harsh, everyday life. To go out at night, just get some air, meant a real risk of not returning, and to return literally in parts. Therefore, the dream of security was almost tangible. People dreamed of a reliable shelter, a cave with a narrow entrance that is easy to defend, about strong walls, about faithful tribesmen nearby. By the way, it is from here, according to many anthropologists, that the roots of human sociality grow. It was almost impossible to survive alone in the Ice Age. Therefore, the dream sounded something like this. If only there were always someone nearby who would cover his back. A familiar feeling, right? It's just that today we phrase it as, I want a reliable partner, or I want friends to rely on, and then it literally meant, I want not to be eaten while I sleep. The dream of protecting children deserves special mention. Care for offspring is one of the most powerful driving forces of the human psyche, and in the conditions of the Ice Age, it acquired a completely new level of sharpness. The mother, wrapping the child in skins by the fire, dreamed not of a new smartphone for the child, but that he banally lived until spring. If you think about it, it puts all the modern parental anxieties, what if he doesn't eat enough porridge, in a rather comical, albeit touching context. Dream 4, the best tools. And now, a little technological humor, because even in the Stone Age, there was an analog of the dream of upgrading technology. Imagine this, you have a stone axe. It's heavy, it blunts after 2 strokes, and making a new one is hours of hard work, chipping a stone in a certain way, picking the right breed. And here you stand in front of a mammoth carcass, trying to split it with this axe. And at some point, you clearly think, I wish there was a better tool. This, dear viewers, is the real dream of an upgrade. The great-grandmother of the modern "I wish I had a newer iPhone," or "I wish the video card did not slow down." History shows that this dream was so powerful that humanity really made a tremendous technological leap during the Paleolithic period. From primitive rough chips of stone to skillfully processed arrowheads and spears, from simple digging sticks to composite tools with several parts. Each such invention is a response to someone's dream, "I wish it was easier." This is especially evident in the example of the invention of the spear-throwing machine, a device that allowed you to throw a spear much further and stronger than just a hand. Just think about it, this is actually the first ever upgrade of long-range weapons, a technical innovation that increases the damage and attack range, as in any computer game. The ancient inventor of the spear-throwing machine, in fact, was the first game designer to balance the characteristics of a character called Hungry Hunter. And people dreamed of warmer and more comfortable clothes. Sewing is also an invention of the Ice Age, by the way. Bone needles found by archaeologists indicate that someone once got tired of wrapping themselves in skins overhead and came up with literally stitching them together. This is a revolution, comparable in scale to the invention of a zipper, only thousands of years earlier and without a single patent dispute. Dream 5 of simple human communication and love. Humor is humor, but let's be honest, Ice Age people were human, with all the emotions, attachments, and needs for intimacy that ensued. The dream of love of a partner, of a family, was no less relevant then than now. It simply expressed itself somewhat differently. Instead of dating in a cafe, a joint cutting of prey. Instead of a bouquet of flowers, a beautifully processed flint knife or necklace of shells and animal teeth found by archaeologists in burials. By the way, this is true. Gifts, jewelry, symbolic objects, and all of this is found in Paleolithic sites, and many researchers tend to see this as an early form of manifestation of romantic feelings in the status relationships. People dreamed of a strong family, of faithful partners, of children who would continue the family. Dreamed of having someone with whom you can share not only the warmth of the fire, but also anxieties, fears, rare moments of joy. In conditions when every day could be the last, the value of human intimacy was perhaps even higher than now, when we can afford to treat relationships a little more lightly. And what is there? There were probably simpler dreams, purely human. For example, the dream that the neighbor in the cave finally stopped snoring. Or that relative who always complains about the cold took and fell silent for at least one evening. Some problems of humanity apparently are universal and do not depend on the era. Dream 6, spring and the end of winter, a special mention deserves perhaps the main seasonal dream of an ancient man. The dream of the onset of spring. If for us the change of seasons is at worst a reason to change the wardrobe, then for a person of the Ice Age it was literally a matter of life and death. Winter meant depletion of supplies, risk of starvation, increased danger due to desperate predators who also had nothing to eat. Spring also meant rebirth, melting snow, the appearance of the first greenery, the return of migratory birds, the revival of rivers. Is it any wonder that in many ancient cultures it was spring holidays associated with the awakening of nature that occupied a central place in the calendar of rituals? People literally counted days, more precisely lunar cycles, before warming. Some researchers believe that the first primitive calendar systems found on bone artifacts with notches could serve precisely to track the change of seasons. That is, the first calendar in history was created not to celebrate deadlines at work, but to understand how much longer you need to hold out to heat. Imagine you are sitting in a frozen cave outside the window, more precisely outside the entrance because there were no windows then. Hello, real estate without a sea view, a blizzard, and you are cutting on the bones and thinking, 20 more days and it will be easier. A familiar sense of waiting for summer, isn't it? Only then the stakes were much higher than just soon vacation. Dream 7 of travels and new lands. People of the Ice Age did not sit still. They migrated, mastered new territories, crossed entire continents. And of course, behind this too, there was a dream to find a better place. We can say that it was then that the idea arose, and whether we should move somewhere where the climate is milder and the production is larger. People crossed the Bering Isthmus, settled North and South America, moved through the territories of modern Europe and Asia. It was not a tourist trip light, but a harsh, long-term, multi-generational journey, full of risk, but also full of hope. The dream of new lands, of a better life somewhere over the horizon. It, in fact, has not gone anywhere to this day. Simply, instead of walking through glaciers, we now use airplanes. And instead of hunting for a mammoth in a new place, we get a job in a new country. The essence of the dream remains the same. There a way can be better than here. And you know what's funny? Judging by the data of genetics and archaeology, some of these migrations were so large-scale and long that a person who began the journey could not physically live to see its completion. That is, the dream of a better land was passed literally from generation to generation, like a baton. Parents dreamed not for themselves, but for children and grandchildren. The thought, as they say, is timeless. Dream 8, about beauty and creativity. And now what many underestimate, speaking about the people of the Stone Age. They had a real craving for beauty. The dream of beauty is not an invention of the Renaissance and not a consequence of the appearance of glossy magazines. It has always been. The rock paintings we have already mentioned, ornaments made of teeth, shells and bones, musical instruments. Yes, flutes made of bird bones found by archaeologists and dating back tens of thousands of years. All this says one thing: it was not enough for people to simply survive. They wanted to create, express themselves, enjoy sound, shape, water. Imagine a man who, returning from an exhausting hunt, frozen and tired, takes a piece of ochre and begins to draw a silhouette of a bison on the cave wall. Why? Not for survival, for sure, but simply because the soul asks for beauty, even when the body asks for peace. This is perhaps one of the most touching dreams of ancient man. The dream of leaving a mark, creating something that will survive him. And honestly, if you think about it, every modern person shooting a YouTube video, posting a photo on social media, or just humming a favorite song in the shower continues this most ancient tradition. The craving to express themselves, to leave their little mark in a huge and often cold world. So, in a sense, dear viewers, you are now watching a descendant of rock painting, only with more convenient navigation and without the risk of frostbite when watching. Dream 9, sleep and rest. And finally, let's talk about a dream so banal that it is often forgotten, about the dream of getting enough sleep. The life of a hunter-gatherer was exhausting physically, constant movement, finding food, fighting for survival, anxious sleep halfway because of fear of predators' attack. Psychologists and anthropologists who study traditional hunting societies note that the quality and duration of sleep in people living in such conditions was often far from ideal. Sleeping peacefully, without waking up from every rustle, without jumping from the slightest sound outside the cave. This was probably one of the most sincere, deepest dreams of an ancient man. It is funny that a modern person sitting in a warm apartment with a soft bed in the same way dreams of getting enough sleep, only not because of the threat of a saber-toothed tiger, but because of deadlines, anxious thoughts, and blue light from the phone screen before bedtime. It seems that quality sleep is one of those things that humanity dreams of getting throughout its history and still has not really succeeded. 10. What did they dream of in their dream? A separate interesting question is what people of the Ice Age dreamed of. Of course, we will never know directly. The time machine has not yet been invented, and diaries to keep 40,000 years ago was not accepted. And papers, to be honest, either, but indirect data, as well as studies of traditional hunter-gatherer societies that have survived to the present day, give some clues. It is believed that the dreams of ancient people were closely related to their daily reality: hunting, animals, weather, anxieties, and hopes of the past day. Many traditional cultures attached great importance to dreams, seeing them as a reflection of important events and clues for the future. It's funny to imagine a person goes to bed in a frozen cave, wrapped in skins, falls asleep under the howl of the wind outside, and sees a dream in which it is warm, a lot of food, and no predators nearby. In fact, this is the same principle by which a modern person, tired of the office routine, sees a warm beach and a complete calm in a dream. The difference is only in the scenery, the essence is the same. The brain draws what is missing in reality. 11. Why are these dreams important to us today? It would seem, what do we modern people with central heating, food delivery to the house, and smartwatches care about the dreams of hunters of the Stone Age? And there is a case, and very important. Studying the dreams and aspirations of our distant ancestors, we actually study ourselves. It turns out that the basic human needs for warmth, security, food, love, creativity, meaning have not changed in tens of thousands of years. Only the ways of satisfying them have changed. We are no longer afraid of being eaten by a cave lion, but we worry about deadlines, mortgages, and likes under the post. The essence of anxiety is, in fact, the same, just new packaging. Understanding this gives you a strange but pleasant sense of connection with the past. When you are cold and want to go to a warm bed, you share this desire with the man who 40,000 years ago just as dreamed of warming up by the fire. When you dream of delicious food without having to cook, you inherit the dream of a hunter who is tired of chasing a mammoth. When you want someone close to you, you are continuing the oldest and most important human dream, which apparently will never become obsolete. So, dear viewers, let's sum up our journey to 40,000 years ago. People of the Ice Age dreamed of warmth, food, safety, better tools, love, and family. The end of winter, new lands, beauty and creativity, and, of course, banal sound sleep. The list is surprisingly similar to the wish list of a modern person, except without the item new iPhone and free Wi-Fi in a cafe. And this is perhaps the most important conclusion from all that has been said. Despite thousands of years separating us from the people of the Stone Age, despite completely different living conditions, technologies, and everyday worries, the human soul dreams about the same thing. About warmth, not only physical, but also mental. About safety, about love, about leaving your mark in this world, and about, damn it, finally getting some sleep. So the next time you think life is too complicated, remember, about 40,000 years ago, your distant ancestor was sitting by a fire, freezing, afraid of a saber-toothed tiger, and dreaming about the same things you dream about. And best of all, you, unlike him, have heating, food delivery, and YouTube to pass the evening. If you liked the video, because ancient people could not even dream of this, and you just need to press the button, subscribe to the channel, so as not to miss new videos about the history of mankind. And, of course, write in the comments, what else do you think our distant ancestors could dream of until new meetings, and let your life always be warm, literally and figuratively.